So if you're a subscriber, you're probably wondering, oh my God, why did she like release 6 videos in the span of 2 days and some of them are really short? Well, the answer is that I have a sort of introduction to Azure DevOps session that I usually give customers about all the weird things about Azure DevOps that takes a while to sort of figure out. And here you go. Here are like sort of the best practices and stuff that you won't necessarily find in the documentation or not quickly. And I recorded that mid-January, and I decided then, instead of making one long half an hour episode, and especially because there were mistakes in between, let me cut it, right? And just take little pieces out and make videos. And then I think I found out there was one spot where I talked myself into like a rabbit hole, a dead end. So I was like, crap, I need to, record a scene fixing that. So I think it took a week for me to do that. But as for why all 6 of them came out now, it was kind of, I had them sitting on a drafts folder on my hard drive. And I was like, you know what? Just put some screens in there, take some photos, make my faces for the titles, and just throw it out there. So I just put all 6 out there. It's not necessarily the type of content that I want to focus on this channel. Type of content being sort of very straightforward. Here's how you use Azure. If you watch my channel, then you know I'm very much against Hello World. It's boring for me. There's enough like people teaching you how to do those and putting the time and effort to actually put together a proper course then sort of for you. I like talking about stuff that people don't talk about for whatever reason. So ARM versus Terraform, especially, you won't really hear that from a Microsoft person because you're supposed to say ARM, but I'm gonna say Terraform because that's what I use and like and prefer. Yeah, so I just publish those and just get them out of the way so that it feels a little bit more like Inbox Zero, except it's YouTube Draft Box Zero. And now I can make sort of some other videos, and I have some ideas out there, especially for more sort of creative or funny ones, like the one where I pretended to be a hacker, or also just sort of more complicated conceptual things to talk about, especially when it comes to end-to-end governance in the cloud, and things like that. So yeah, that's why those videos came so quickly. Don't worry, the next ones won't come that quickly, and it'll be a bit longer and maybe more interesting as well to watch. So I also today want to talk very briefly about why I'm making these videos and why I'm putting them on YouTube. So, they let me be creative. I get to have some sort of fun. Programming can be creative, but it's also just a lot of head banging against the wall when something isn't working. Or if it's creative, right? You think of something really cool, you've built something in a really cool way, and it's hard to show people. And if you show people, it's hard for them to get excited because it's the type of stuff where you have to sit down and take not just 30 seconds, maybe 30 minutes to fully understand it and be able to appreciate it. Whereas if I take the time to make a video and I explain things, I can distill maybe those 30 minutes into 3. At the end of the day, I have something to look at, watch, and share people. And also these videos, I sent the links to my parents, and my mom doesn't even understand English very well. And my dad's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But they like being able to see my face regularly, and then they know that, okay, I'm in lockdown, but it's all right, I'm safe, and everything like that. So that's kind of an indirect reason that just occurred to me why I'm also sort of doing this. Um, yeah, I think what I wanted to actually tell you was that I miss teaching people, right? I used to speak at conferences. And also, one of my first jobs, like paid jobs, was at my old high school teaching kids how to make websites. Like, it was my hobby when I was still in high school. And then when I kind of graduated and I was in college, I had a side job doing that, going back to the high school and teaching other kids how to make websites. And so I'd like teaching, right? I initially came to Germany after I studied abroad, after I graduated, when I came back, I came to teach English as a teaching assistant. So I do this just to say that it's also just having fun. You're only working part time, and you don't have the full responsibility of a teacher. But I love explaining things to people. You know, in society, you have a job because you have to bring business value, to bring money, to pay rent, etc., etc., etc. And when I was younger, there was some point where I thought, I want to be a teacher. I want to do something like nice. I want to help society. So that's not me. Both my sisters actually work in education. Um, so we almost all went that way, except not me. I also left the country. um, and I'm self taught, right? So everything I know, I didn't take in a university course. I learned a lot of things from like Udemy courses and conference talks, like especially conference talks. I really like that sort of deep technical knowledge that you get in a conference talk. There's a lot of good beginner stuff out there as well, like on YouTube and free courses. Um, and I learned a lot from that, but getting that next step, that next, how do you go from being like a junior engineer to a senior engineer? You learn a lot of that on the job, and also I had people in my work who taught me. Right, we worked together, and I eventually picked some of that stuff up. And there are sort of little leaps that you make, right? So most of the time when you're learning, it just goes like this, and then but when you finally understand something, it clicks. You have that sort of yeah jump, that leap. Um, and I think for me, I still remember some of those moments and some of those concepts, and I would love to, for myself as well, distill some of that, put it into paper, into words, or in a video, and share that with everybody. Because why not? Education is there to help everybody, and it should be free. So I went to public high school, a very good public high school. Um, I'm very fortunate to work for Microsoft. I used to be self employed, so there was a time where if I was doing any of this, and I did for a while sell a course about how to make responsive email layouts so people could spam other people, not really spam, but yeah, send out newsletters that you actually want to read in order to make money. So yeah, I don't have to do that anymore. I have a salaried job. And so I'm doing all of this sort of on top, mostly in the on the weekends, maybe a little bit in the evenings as well for fun. And I think the biggest sort of thank you I get out of it is when people tell me that it really helped them understand something. It really helped them, learn. Maybe it helped them as well to just, I don't know, progress in their career. So please send me your feedback. It means a lot to me. Sometimes I'm just talking to the camera because I'm lonely and it's lockdown. But mostly I'm doing it because I'm hoping it helps somebody. It'll also be fun to maybe for me personally to rewatch in like a year or two and be like, what were you thinking? Um, so yeah, I don't know. That's kind of why I'm doing it in a sort of rambly way to teach people. It should be free. It's also creative for me. I think those are the reasons I mostly mentioned. And the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight is why, even though I started this by saying, oh my God, she suddenly published 6 videos in 2 days, why I do this sort of here in my YouTube channel, and why some of this stuff will never end up in official Microsoft channels. So the major reason is that I am in real life sometimes a bit sassy and snarky. Sometimes I can also be very shy. And that's me, and I can be me exactly 100% the way I am on my channel. You'll see in the videos that I sometimes kind of am super sarcastic about things that are weird about Azure. But I also hope it comes across that I'm respectful about it, because in reality, I actually have huge respect for people who work with legacy and build and maintain legacy systems in real life in production. That's super, super hard. So despite all my frustrations with some of Azure, right? And I'm coming from the outside, right? So it's all new to me. Despite all my frustrations with it, especially having talked to some of the people that build these products, I have a lot of understanding and respect for the hard work that they put in And it's really, really hard, as anybody, any engineer who's ever participated in sort of like a huge refactor or a huge relaunch to build something, it's just really, really hard. So yeah, I think those are human aspects of it that you won't necessarily find in a documentation, official documentation or anything like that either. Yeah, so in these videos, and I try to do it briefly, right? Explain, well, show them the initial reaction, like what, but also explain sort of why, and then how to use it. Or if something doesn't work the way you expected, here's a workaround to help you to achieve that. So I try to kind of balance it out and do stuff like that. I think the other reason why some of this stuff will never end up on official channels is so a lot of the Terraform stuff that I'm doing, for example, I love Terraform. I should know ARM better, and I need to work on that. Yeah, I don't know. I come from the open source community where just sort of, it's different. And I just, yeah, I don't know. It just, Terraform is such a pleasure to use compared to ARM, even though ARM does have features or can do things that Terraform cannot do. But those types of sort of comparisons, and maybe you won't find, right, in the official documentation, those sort of comparisons. There's a little bit we've mentioned briefly, but sort of that deep level technical detail comparison you won't find, B, Terraform is another product. So you're not going to find that in the official Microsoft documentation. Not really. I mean, ideally it belongs on the HashiCorp side, right? And I'm in that weird sort of middle because Terraform is also open source. So it's free. Like if you're using Terraform to deploy to Azure like I am, I'm not actually giving any money to HashiCorp, right? So maybe for that reason, you won't necessarily find the best documentation in terms of how to use it with Azure. Oh, there goes my email. I should have turned off Outlook. So I'm kind of sitting in that middle ground. So I think, yeah, there's always going to be something for me to write about, talk about, and I get to be me doing it. Okay, very last thing that I want to film tonight. And now that I've closed my Outlook, I can have my train of thought. So this is a vlog episode, right? So these are going to be episodes where I pretty much have no screen recording. I'm just talking into the camera, talking to you. I've been thinking about sort of, okay, what kind of topics do I want to, discuss? And so here are a couple ideas, right? Let me know, message me on Twitter, or ideally put a comment below. Let me know what you want to hear about, what you think it might be interesting. Especially since some of these topics, I don't think I would necessarily just go out there and say, here you go. But if there's enough people interested, for example, about hearing what it's like to be a woman in tech, or hearing about how somebody like me who's completely self-taught ends up at Microsoft. And part of that story, as well as how is it that you go from a designer, front end, back end architecture, and yeah, how do you do that? What is that like? Another topic that's on my mind sometimes is mentoring, kind of, how do you find that person who makes the difference in terms of those huge leaps in your career? So I had that at the Allianz, for example. I would definitely not be here today if it weren't for that one person. Yeah, I don't know, kind of stuff like that. I'm sure there's other things that will pop into my head. And the things that I've just said right now, if it weren't for the fact that I'm recording them, I might have forgotten. But yeah, so let me know what you want me to talk about, and I will make a brief sort of vlogging video about it. All right. So it's 8:30. It's time to sign off. Good night.